Okay, ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, dear guests, we would like to start this press conference. And I would like to point out that a majority in the European Parliament is concerned about propaganda against the EU by third parties and pushes for a resolution to counteract this. And the debate is this morning on this issue. A resolution against the negative propaganda about the EU by third parties, ladies and gentlemen of the press, is, according to us, a next step towards censorship of the press, of social media, of journalists. And let me ask you this. Who decides what is propaganda against the EU? And the answer is, it's the EU itself, by means of institutes like EU versus Disinfo. The European Commission already spoke with representatives of Facebook and other social media to pressure them. The Commission wants these big media platforms to immediately remove content that is negative towards the EU and its policies. And as a result, we already see critical voices being banned from Facebook, from Twitter, people who have nothing to do with foreign countries, no Russian trolls or bots, just ordinary people who speak out against mass migration, against an EU superstate, or against the violent crimes by migrants. In a society with a free press, it must be possible to criticize the government, the governing institutions and policies without fear of being censored or worse. So, while this resolution seems to aim at third countries like Russia, who indeed might try to destabilize the EU, it de facto aims at EU-critical political parties, EU-critical media outlets, and EU-critical individuals, journalists, bloggers and tweeps. And we therefore, at an incredibly high pace, are marching towards a Soviet-like superstate where dissenting opinions are forbidden. The timing of this resolution is no coincidence. We are 2.5 months away from the elections for the European Parliament, and you all will be very aware of the growing popularity of EU-critical parties. These parties, like ours, see the impotence of the EU to deal with essential issues like the debt crisis, the migration crisis, terrorism in our cities, youth unemployment, and economic growth. The EU is not the cause of prosperity and peace, as it likes to present itself. Instead, non-EU countries are often performing better on economic growth. EU countries that close their borders are not suffering from terrorist attacks. And this is the inconvenient truth the EU would like to cover up. And I express my deepest concerns about the direction the EU is heading with this resolution. In a normal situation, a government would let the free press do their job, accept the criticism, and would change its course as a result of it. Instead, the EU chooses to use its power to silence the press and push its disastrous agenda. And let me state this very clear. The European Commission has no legal mandate to restrict the freedom of expression. Nowhere in the treaty we find an article that permits the Commission to establish an institute that monitors the media and that bans inconvenient opinions. Such measures by the Commission are completely illegal. And therefore, our group will vote against this resolution and propose an alternative text, pressing for the protection of the freedom of the press and a level playing field for all political, philosophical and religious beliefs which are based upon the equality of all human beings. Thank you.
All right, we'll be taking questions now. Please state your name and the agency you're working for. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sándor Zsíros from Euronews. Have there been any contacts recently by group members of Fidesz for a possibility of future cooperation towards your MEPs?
Well, I won't like to elaborate on that. It is very sensitive how the new parliament will look like, what will happen with the different EU critical groups as a result of Brexit and the leave of British members of parliament. That puts some of the EU critical groups under pressure. So there are a lot of talks all over the place. What from the perspective of my group I can say is that we fully support the policies of Mr. Orban and of his party.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Follow up on this question. I'm Katalin Halmai from the Hungarian newspaper Népszava. Would your group be welcoming Fidesz in the next European Parliament?
We would warm-heartedly welcome Fidesz. They are welcome in our group.
Okay, any other questions? Last call. Go ahead.
Tommaso Lecca from Europa Today. You say there have been talk all over the place with other parties. These talks have also put you in touch with five-star movements?
Well, as I said to the previous speaker, I'm not going into details whether or not there are specific contacts with Fidesz, and I'm not going to confirm or deny any contacts with five-star movement.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you very much for your attention.